Good morning friends, welcome back to my channel Coding Environment. This video is the continuation of the last video where I tried to explain what is design patterns in Java. So in this video I'm going to cover what is Singleton Design Pattern, which is a part of the Creational Design Pattern. So before we move into this video, let's see what are the topics I'm going to cover. The first topic which I'm going to cover in this video is what is Singleton Design Pattern. After that, I'm going to cover what is the practical uses of the Singleton Design Pattern, and then we will see the 5 different ways with which we can implement this Singleton Design Pattern in Java, and then we'll have some demo code for this. So without making any delay, let's move into the topics. The first topic is what is Singleton Design Pattern. Singleton Design Pattern is a type of the Creational Design Pattern. So if you see, it belongs to the Creational Design Pattern. This is the design pattern to which it belongs. And also it states that there will be only one instance of the class present in the entire application at any given point of the time. So basically, in one application for a given class, which is a singleton class, there can't be more than one instance present in that entire application at any given point of time. So let me illustrate the Singleton Design Pattern with an example. You assume this circle as a whole application, and in this there can be instances of the multiple classes. So here you can assume this particular red circle is belonging to class A, this class B, which is green circle, so all these green circles will be representing to the class B, and this class C is representing this blue circle. So here all these 3 instances of this class C is represented by the blue circle. So in this whole application you can see that for this particular red ball, so in this whole application you can see that for this particular red class or red instance of that class, there is only one instance present in this entire application. So this is the singleton class in this, because there is only one instance of this class is present in that entire application. These two classes have multiple instances present, and hence these two are not the singleton classes. So this is all about the Singleton Design Pattern. So what is the practical uses of the Singleton Design Pattern? So one of the practical uses of the Singleton Design Pattern is used in exception handling. Generally, we create a singleton class which will handle all the custom exception and will throw to the user. Similarly, this singleton class is used in the bean creation also. So if you're familiar with the Hibernate beans or the Spring beans, we can create the beans by defining it as a singleton, or it can be a prototype also. So this is the place where it is also used. A part of this, in the logging mechanism also, we use this Singleton Design Pattern. Now let's see what are the different ways to achieve a singleton class. To create a singleton class, we can achieve it using the eager initialization, using the static block, using the lazy initialization, using the thread safe singleton class, and then using the lazy initialization with the double check locking. So let's see all these 5 different ways to create a singleton class. Let's see one by one how we can achieve the singleton classes. So the first method with which we can create a singleton class is by the eager initialization. As the name itself suggests that it's an eager initialization, right? It means we are going to create that particular object at the very early stage. So if you see in this program, there is one class called GFG, and now we are creating a reference variable of this GFG, right? This GFG class. Now if you see, we are creating this object of the class at the time of declaring this instance variable only, right? So whenever this class is getting executed, this particular object will also get created and loaded into the memory by the JVM. Also, one thing we have to note here is that the constructor is private. Now you can ask why the constructor is private in this class. The constructor is private because no other class should be able to call this particular constructor to create this class object. If any other class wants to use the this particular class, it has to call this getInstance method, and the getInstance method will return this particular instance. So what is this instance? It is nothing but this particular instance which we have created at the time of loading this particular class into the JVM. So what is the benefit we are going to get by using the eager initialization for the singleton class? The one benefit is it is very simple to implement. There is no complication and it can be created very easily. But what is the cons for this particular approach? One con we can see that even if you are not using this particular instance, or even if you are not going to use this particular class in the entire app lifetime, you have already created this object. So this is a kind of a resource wastage. So this is one way with which we can create a singleton class. Now after that, the other method is the using the static block. So if you see this static block, there is not much difference between the last approach and in this approach. In this approach also, we are going to create this particular object of that singleton class in the static block. So what is the benefit we are going to get by creating that object inside a static block? So one benefit which you are going to get by using this particular approach is that exception handling is possible in this approach. Sorry, by mistake I have written not, but yes, the exception handling is possible in this approach, and this is also a simple to implement, and this is also going to do the resource wastage if you're not going to use this instance for the whole application. So if you see the difference between this approach and the last approach is the object is getting created in this while declaring that particular instance of that class. But in this, we are going to create that object in a static block. In the last approach, the exception handling was not possible. But in this approach, the exception handling is possible. Apart of that, other things are same. So these are the two ways with which we can create a singleton class. Let's move to the third ways. This one is the lazy initialization. In this method, object is created only if needed. So this can also prevent the resource wastage. So if you see in the previous approaches, we are creating the object of that particular class even if that object is not required. But in this lazy initialization, we are going to create that object only if it is needed. So how we can do this? So in this also, you can see that the constructor is private only, and also that instance is private static. Now you can see that we have one getInstance method. So whenever any class is trying to use this particular class or trying to create the object of this particular class, he has to call that getInstance method. So when somebody is going to call this getInstance method, we are going to check that the instance is null or not. So if the object is already created, the instance will be not null, and if the object is not created, the instance will be null. So let's see this how it is going to break in a multi-threaded environment. Now suppose I have a thread T1, right? Now I have a thread T1 here, and I have a thread T2 again here. So now suppose T1 is trying to call this getInstance method, and now when the thread T1 is accessing the getInstance method and it moved into this method, it passed this getInstance equal to null check also, and then it is at this point. It has not executed but this particular line, and the thread T1 is waiting at this point of time. Now same time the thread T2 is also trying to access this particular getInstance method. Now the thread T2 moved here, it came inside this class, and it also executed this particular instance of, and it also executed this particular condition. Now you can see that the thread T1 has not executed this particular line, right? Now at this point of time, the thread T2 also moved inside this particular if block. Now you can see that thread T1 and thread T2 moved inside this particular if block, and in this case both is going to create its own object into the heap. So you can assume that T1 created this object, and that thread T2 is also created its own object, and they will return their own particular objects. So here you can see that if we have two threads, there is a possibility that they're going to create their own instance of that particular class, which is clearly not justifying that singleton design pattern, right? So how we can overcome this particular problem? So to overcome this particular problem, we can go and create a thread safe singleton class. So in this, you can see there is only one difference between this previous program and in this program. If you see, this get instance method is not synchronized here. So what we can do is we can synchronize this particular method so that if multiple threads are trying to access this particular get instance method, they will not be able to do at the same time. So if thread T1 is using this particular get instance method, then thread T2 will not be able to enter into this particular method. So using this synchronized method, we can synchronize this particular singleton class, and this will also be a thread safe. So this is the way with which you can create a singleton class which is thread safe also. Just remember this, that we are going to use the synchronized keyword to make this particular get instance method as a synchronized method. And the last one is the lazy initialization with the double block. So the drawback of this particular thread safe singleton class is because of the synchronized keyword, in the case of the multi-threaded application, this particular get instance method will take more time, or it is going to slow down the performance of that application because it has to synchronize different threads and synchronization takes some time. So to overcome this particular problem, what we can do is the lazy initialization with the double check. So if we are going to write the code in this way, you can see that this particular get instance method is not synchronized. So we are not using a synchronized method. Instead of that, what we are going to do is we are going to synchronize the particular block where we are creating that particular object. See, what we have done is we have synchronized this particular block. So basically, if you see, this is the part where we are creating that object, right? So we have synchronized this block. So this is actually a synchronized block, and if we are creating an object in this way, this is a thread safe also, and it is not going to slow down the performance of that application. So these are the 5 ways with which you can create a singleton class in Java. So hope you liked this video, and if you have any doubt, you can write it in comment section. I will try to answer it. Till then, have a great day and goodbye.